Let's talk about the creative subtype. What does the creative subtype of ENTP look like?
Okay, so a creative subtype is going to be a lot less serious about their career. In fact, that's going to be one of the bigger struggles. I wouldn't be surprised that when people think of ENTPs as being a bit flighty, in careers, they're usually talking about the creative ENTP because they have a harder time nailing things down.
Yeah.
Dominant ENTPs don't need a lot of grounding practices. They're usually, they even if they don't like structure themselves, they can at least discipline themselves to show up. Creative ENTPs usually need some sort of grounding exercise. They need something that reminds them to sort of be here and remember their appointments and go do the things that they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And another grounding hobby could be something like even horticulture, but something that reminds them to stay on Earth. They're a little bit more of the heads in the clouds style of ENTP. They are very exciting, though. There's a lot of different ventures that they like. They're the ones who aren't a jack of all trades in a serial way.
Yeah.
They're a jack of all trades in a simultaneous way. They've got their fingers in a lot of pies usually at the same time. And so they are very interesting. They're very interested. They take in and play with a lot of data and information. They usually know a ton of stuff about, disparate things. They are super focused on possibilities. And they have a tendency to stir the pot and get things going. So unlike the dominant style, which is more of an in-charge style, this is more of a get things going style.
This is what I think of as the classic stereotype of the Doc Brown from Back to the Future, or even Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty. Mm-hmm. Kind of like this bombastic, devil may care, just attitude of like, we'll figure it out as we go. Mm-hmm. Let's just keep like causing chaos around ourselves and have fun. That's basically their metric.
Yeah, exactly. And they are probably the strongest of brainstormer of the 4 subtypes.
Yeah.
Now, extroverted intuition, that cognitive function, for those of you who are a little more geeky, that cognitive function is the brainstorming function. So these would be the most brainstorming of all the brainstormers. All right. So they come up with quick, creative ideas very, very fast. And that is the thing that they do better than anybody else. But they have what's called a halo pattern, which is when the there's a halo pattern that comes up on EEG machines when a person is good at practical support skills and practical social skills, and they have the weakest of the 4. So they're the best brainstormers, but the hardest one at being practical.
Yeah.
Which is unsurprising. They're hard to miss. They also gravitate towards things like entrepreneurship, but they're also very good at promoting. They're good at talking to people. They're good at exploring possibilities, making deals. They are the ones who have a tendency to jump around to multiple businesses, which is unsurprising. And usually when they bring their talents in, it's a mix of a little bit of business, a little bit of psychology, a little bit of maybe, specialist training, maybe legal training or something to that effect. But they're looking for possibilities that merge all these different skills they've picked up going from thing to thing to thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the geeky part, though. How are their functions attuned?
Oh, so I do actually have a list of specific careers, though.
Let's do the careers. Let's do that first, then we'll go to the geeky stuff.
Yeah, and then I'll do the geeky. Okay, so I wrote out a list of things that I think probably would very much suit a creative ENTP. These are the ones who you're probably going to see become comedians.
Yeah.
All right, the creative ENTP, because there's a disproportionately high number of ENTPs in the comedy world, and I have a suspicion that a lot of them are creative subtypes. But copywriter, marketing specialist, specifically digital marketing specialist, like a YouTube host or a critic would be very common. Something like photography might even, like something more artistic, graphic design, film and video production. Please, nobody quote me or fight me on this one because it's not a hill I'll die on, but I've always suspected that maybe Quentin Tarantino might have ENTP preferences, and I would suspect he's a creative ENTP.
Same thing with Dave Chappelle. Mm-hmm. Again, I wouldn't fight over that. But if he's an ENTP, I would guess he'd be a creative one.
Yeah, exactly. But you've also got things like, things like podcasting and anything where there's a platform already built in some other way and the ENTP just needs to show up and start talking to a microphone. Not that I'm a creative ENTP, but these kinds of things where somebody else is kind of responsible for making sure that the rest of the things happen. And then that ENTP just needs to do what they're good at.
Yeah. And these are the ENTPs that challenge the rest of us when we're like not challenge us directly, but are challenging to to help work alongside, because they're lone actors often. I mean, if you're creative, you have the creativity, and it's the interfacing with other people can maybe be a challenge because, again, you're being creative and you're moving really fast.
Yeah, well, Dario very kindly, when he talks about them, talks about how important grounding things are. I already mentioned horticulture, grounding exercises, music, martial arts, yoga. It's like a loving, caring family and a good institution might also help. It's like, get the help you need in order to, not just be all over the place.
Yeah.
Look for those tools. And then you asked, what's the geeky
so
tech stuff?
For type nerds that are following along, the analytic and holistic attunement of each of the two functions in the front.
Right. Again, if you want to know more about analytic versus holistic, please go check out our Subtype podcast with Dario.
Yeah.
But those of you who are caught up to speed and like the geeky part, the perceiving function, again, in this case, extroverted intuition or exploration, that's going to have an analytic bent. It's going to be that more assertive quality to it. But the judging function, in this case, introverted thinking or accuracy, that's going to be a little bit more diffused. That's going to be more what's called holistic. And so that's one of the reasons why it's harder to make things happen, because your judging function, even if it is introverted, is a little bit more open-ended and doesn't have as, it's not as certain of all the things that it's trying to accomplish.
Yeah. And then as far as a neurotransmitter understanding goes, this is the subtype attuned to dopamine.
Right.
So chasing dopamine, this is the one that would be very much in alignment with that. So you can already see a chemical difference here as well. Let's talk about the normalizing subtype of ENTPs.
All right. These ENTPs, by the way, we mentioned this in some of the other career-based podcasts. A dominant ENTP that we just mentioned before, or mentioned a couple of subtypes before, that is an ENTP that might be mistyping themselves as an ENTJ.
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe even an ESTJ.
Yeah.
And the creative ENTP, they might be mistyping themselves as an ENFP, right?
Yeah.
Or some other type like that.